And I've always said from day one, my goal was not to get you to like police officers. I'm not here to have you put up a thin blue line flag in your front yard and say, oh, I love police officers all of a sudden. All I want you to do is just have a different perspective of law enforcement by the time you're done talking to me. Because if I can give you a different perspective, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to like me all of a sudden, but all it means is that the next time you see a video that comes out of Philadelphia, the next time you see a video that comes out of San Bernardino, you'll be able to say, hey, look, I have a different, unique perspective because somebody I know who's credible, that's knowledgeable in this subject, has been able to give me some insight that I wouldn't have had before, even though I may not like that person.
Today's episode of the It's Needed podcast is brought to you in part by Thin Line Anthem. Thin Line Anthem is a supplement brand created by first responders for first responders, and they are offering our listeners the exclusive deal of 25% off your entire order at checkout. So go to their website, thinlineanthem.com, stock the cart up as much as you can, and enter the promo code It's Needed. All capital letters, no spaces, for 25% off your entire order. Enjoy the podcast.
Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy, Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by the light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, It's the Popo.
What is the word, brother? How you doing?
Oh, just trying to stay alive, bro. Out here got fires going on, and you know,
is Cali still burning?
Bro, it like lit back up yesterday. I'll tell you that in a minute, but
oh man,
yeah. So,
okay, so you got to play police officer and firefighter.
Oh, pretty much, man. So it's a sacrificial job, which we'll talk about today.
I'm just saying that's another check mark against Cali. You know, no offense to all my Cali people, but that's another check mark.
Hold on,
you got all the rest of that stuff.
Don't worry about it.
Hold on,
the earth moves.
Hey, we'll
all
take
of that.
We'll take it. We'll take it.
Yeah, y'all gotta take it. You got a choice but to take that one.
And we are also joined today by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Billy, a.k.a. The Savage. What's up, bro?
What's going on, everyone?
Billy, you all right, bro? You good, bro?
I didn't mean to make that sound so sad.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, my goodness. So what's going on? What's going on, man? I mean, Bill, you got Eeyore over here with the rain cloud just following him.
We had winds yesterday. I don't know if anyone saw. I don't even know if it was in the news, but the winds were like, I don't know, 80 miles an hour. Like trees were falling over. Like huge trees are in the road right now, and that's what started the fires, I think.
So you know what's crazy is I've seen winds. Like we have these things out here called Santa Ana winds, and those Santa Ana winds, like no joke.
Santa Ana winds.
Santa Ana winds.
Santa Ana.
Yeah, because they got the city Santa Ana.
Okay,
or whatever.
Gusts up to 50 miles an hour. So I was a little wrong with 80.
So then, wait, what was it?
20 to 30 with gusts up to 50.
Billy was like 150 mile an hour winds.
It was an F1 tornado.
But real talk, he's right though. So in all my years, I've never seen winds like that ever before. It was crazy. Like I was driving to work, and where we live, there's like a lot of cow. What do they call cow farms?
Like farms, yeah.
Yeah, cow farms. And I don't know if they make milk there. I don't know.
Hey, what's the farms called where the cows live? What's the name of that, y'all? Real quick.
Oh man. So anyways, I'm driving to work, so there's a lot of dirt and dust, and the wind is picking up. So it's funny. Here goes a little bit of my reveal of how I'm an impatient driver. So I'm driving, and I'm trying to get there to work out on time, and like all this, like I see all these people braking in front of me, and in my mind I'm like, man, what are people braking for? And I was like, oh, they can't see nothing, because literally you couldn't see the car in front of you. So
why?
Because all the dust
with the wind,
all the dust had picked up, and it was blowing everywhere. And then so when I got out of that, I get into the city, and like I'm seeing like huge trees just like uprooted from like in the front of people's houses, like in the front of the yards. Just uprooted. Sidewalks came up, like they lifted the concrete out.
right in front of the studio, too.
Yeah, right out in front of our studio. It's crazy. So then, on top of that, when that happens, when the winds pick up, you got down power lines. So some of these power lines will go down, and they'll spark up, and they'll start fires. So sure enough, they started fires. So now you got fires with wind, and now you got a brush fire. So they actually sent some of my units, or some of the units from my department, to go help the next city over start to evacuate. They evacuated, I want to say like 25,000 residents or something like that. Because all their houses were in danger of being burned by the fire. And then in Irvine, I heard they evacuated like some crazy number, like 90,000 people, 25% of the population of Irvine.
Wow.
This might be a dumb question, so I'm gonna just put that out there before I even say
Oh,
this.
please, I want to hear it.
Like, do y'all have tornadoes out there?
No.
Nah.
No.
I think that happens in like flat states. Right?
You'll get like a twirl with like a little dust pile.
Like
You said a
leaves.
twirl, not a whole tornado, just a tour.
You
You
get
get a tour.
You get like a little twirl or something like that. But yeah, we don't have
Okay.
tornadoes. You guys get tornadoes out there?
Okay. Yeah, we have tornadoes out here. Yeah, absolutely. But
Have you-
once again, like not in the major cities because there's too many like skyscrapers and whatnot. I'm assuming. I just made that up in my head.
Yeah, I'm about to say what? So what? Skyscrapers like stop tornadoes in?
I mean, I feel like it messes up the wind flow. I don't know. We don't really have. I never heard of a tornado in like
Yeah.
downtown.
He's really into
Columbus.
weather,
You
guys.
got
His passion is
meteorologists over here giving us the forecast.
Welcome to WKYZ meteorologist. It's needed. I don't know. I don't know. We don't have them in the city, but in the outskirts, yes. So like if you are in like a surrounding suburbs or like the outskirts of the city, then yeah, you might.
If
see
you're
a
one of our
tornado here.
listeners, please educate AJ and us on our comments.
First off, Ryan thought. Never mind. I ain't gonna put him out there with the whole Chicago trip.
Hey,
and
bro.
The lake.
Hey, I know it's a lake now. I educated myself. I went out there, did my education,
What was
and
it?
found out that there's a lake.
Was it Lake Erie or Lake Michigan?
Lake Michigan.
It was Lake Michigan. Ryan thought Lake Michigan was an ocean, y'all. I'm just.
Hey, is Lake Erie a real thing or is that from a movie?
Nah, it's a real thing.
Oh.
It's like,
Nah,
I think
real.
it's one of the
Come-
Great
see.
Lakes. Look, geography
It
and
is.
weather is
Oh,
not
look
our
at-
thing, guys. Just everyone know.
Hey, I got a question for y'all before we get started, real quick,
here we go.
because I'm having a debate with a lot of people about this. If I gave each one of y'all separately, all right, y'all can't work together on this.
I felt
If
like we're
gave
doing a
each
math.
one
You
of
about
y'all
to give us a math
separately
problem.
a map of the United States, and each state is outlined, but there's no name in it. Could you write in the name of every state?
No, I could not.
I think I could do a lot of them.
No, you could not. No, you could not.
Dang, you just gonna
Look,
dog me
we
out?
can- there's an
No,
online.
you
You can
could
do
not.
that online. You can take the test. So let's
Let's
do
do
that later.
it. Let's do it, the three of us, and we'll post
Okay.
who did
Oh yeah,
better.
who did better? Yep.
So I tried it already. I failed horribly. Like I got maybe half of them. Maybe.
I feel like that's good.
That's what I'm saying.
Why AJ hasn't said no? You cannot.
Yeah.
No, you cannot.
Just
No, you
'cause-
can't,
just 'cause
you
he
said it
could.
way.
Like I'm
you
already
said it way
thinking.
too
I don't know what
confident.
Wisconsin looks like.
Hey.
Like I don't know which one.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you get to like the middle of America, like
Yeah,
it's
they're all the same.
confusing. Like I got Cali. All right, I got Florida. I got Texas.
He put
you know.
California for Florida and Florida for Cali. He was like, I got
Yeah,
this.
I mean,
I got
I
this.
get confused.
He put-
And then,
he
like
said-
what's south of Cali?
He put Ocean, Michigan.
Mexico,
there.
south of Cali.
Nah, it's, where is New Mexico? Where is New Mexico?
It's by Arizona.
Arizona. I know that one. I'm from Arizona, but that,
Is Arizona in between? All right, we got to.
Don't be trying to prove us wrong just because you did bad.
I'm just saying. All right, when y'all come out here,
Hey, that's
though,
just
I
like,
want
you
y'all
know,
to-
when you screw something up, but you want to make sure everybody, you want to prove to everybody else that everybody else gonna screw it up too. So you don't feel that
and
bad.
And it's more so like I don't feel as dumb as I feel. Like when I say you can't do it, I'm projecting my failure.
I know you. I know you are.
So I don't feel.
So
as
you don't
dumb.
feel
Like, I'm
bad.
like, no, you can't. You can't do that because I can't do that.
He said, "No, you won't. No, you won't."
Yeah, but we gonna do this, and you can don't cheat. Like don't start studying the map when we get done recording, Ryan, because I know how you operate. You might just be cruising around
Here we go. Hey
in
man,
a dust storm,
Hey
not paying
man.
attention.
Oh man,
What's up with you, brother?
Hey, we are a week away from election day, which I cannot wait, and I cannot wait because I asked my wife an interesting question the other day. Well, it wasn't that interesting, but it was just a question. It was, I was like, how does the president like actually run the country during an election year? Because think about it, he's been campaigning hard for a year, so who's really running the country? Because like,
Yeah,
he's
I
traveling day in, day out, doing campaign rallies, spending monies, attacking the other person, vice versa.
well, his
Like-
plane is a traveling office, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know,
for sure,
but
man. That's a traveling
but
building,
but
yeah.
really think about it. But how much work are we really putting into running the country right now?
I ask myself that often, like how much are you actually running the country as a president? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I know you make very important decisions, but like on a day to day, like what's your 8 to 12 hour day look like when you're the president?
I know we got to do a day in the life as a president.
Like, are you really like, hey, I'm gonna go golfing today? Like, are you getting your Ryan Tillman on? Like, hey, I'm about to just go golfing right now, or
that's
how's it look?
But I was really curious because I'm thinking like, and so what kind of led me there. So I don't know if you guys saw last week's debate. But one of the things that I know AJ saw because he had his popcorn out. But one of the things that I guess bothers me is that when they talk about, like, they'll be asked a question about the issues, but nobody actually ever gives a straight answer about what they're going to do to solve that issue.
Never.
It's like, well, Billy did this and Billy didn't do that. Right. Ryan, can you tell me about the energy plan? Well, AJ screwed that up a couple years ago. I mean, I'm just saying, exactly like AJ is terrible at what he's doing, the energy. I mean, he did this wrong, he did that wrong. And it was like, it's almost like my two sons. Like, I'll go get on, like, I'll go get on Gavin for something. And I'll be like, Gavin, like, why did you do that? Well, Grayson told me to do this. And I'm like, I didn't ask that. I asked why you did this. And so it was just kind of frustrating and annoying. Like, this is what we have right now. Like, I don't care what side you are, left or right. Now, I will say that, being a part of an organization, like running the president or running the country, it takes a good team. And so you got to look at the team of the candidate that you're going for, because that's kind of what I look at is like, okay, who has a better team in place to run this? But I don't know, man. I was just watching that election. I'm just thinking like for me, I think if I ever ran for politics, I actually talked to a politician who's running for Congress in Tennessee. It was actually, and she's, I'm not going to name her political affiliation because then that will kind of disclose what my political affiliation is, which not that I really care, but I don't want y'all up in my business. It's the Green
Party, everybody.
But anyways, let's just say I was pleasantly surprised because what she identifies with more is opposite of what I identify with. But when we had this conversation, it was very unique in a sense that she is very in line with a lot of my views, and my views are much in line with hers. And so it allowed us to have a really good regulated conversation and not get so caught up on the political party, but actually more so the issues. And one of the things that stood out about her, which really impressed me with her, was that she, despite her party affiliation, she was able to have candid conversations and be able to see on the opposite end of the spectrum, and really said the only reason I identify with this political party is because she was like, I wanted to run as an independent, but I know that as an independent, I wouldn't be able to garnish the amount of votes that I really need. And so we're having this discussion, and, we're talking, she's in line with supporting police and this and that. And I'm just like, I was pleasantly surprised. And so the cool thing, I guess, that I got from her was she said that during her campaign, she has been asked, I can't remember what the exact term that she used, but she's been asked by members of her own political party to run bash campaigns. I don't think that's the correct answer, but essentially you're bashing the other opponents. She's like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to focus on the issues and focus on what I'm going to do. And members of her own political party are shaming her because she won't run bash campaigns against other people. Because what brought me to that point with her was I heard a campaign ad out here for one of the guys that's running for Congress, and his opponent was like, this is an ad on the radio, mind you, was like, coward congressman this or coward Congress. And like, she just kept calling this dude a coward. And I'm like, why do you got to call this dude a coward? Like, despite what this dude has done, like, why do you have to do that to win an election? Like, are you not confident in who you are as a person and your own abilities to go out there and just present yourself as you are and as the issues that you're going to do? Is that what politics has really become, where we just got to shame everybody so much so that way I can hope I win the election? Like, if I ever ran a political campaign, I would pride myself on being strong and firm on my issues, even though I know people would attack me, because people already attack me now for what I do. But one of the things about me, this, and anybody that knows me knows this, is that despite the rhetoric out there, despite the hateful comments that I might get, I don't go back and forth and start bantering. I don't go into a banter session.
Ain't no point.
No, ain't no point. I'll let you say what you say, but I'm going to stick to what I do. I'm going to give you guys my knowledge, my expertise on the given field that I have knowledge in, and I'm not going to get caught up in this back and forth session. And I think that's what presidential elections have gone to, is like, man, like, you're not confident in your own ability to just run an election based off of your own knowledge and expertise on how you're going to solve problems.
Yeah. And it's almost like we have become more attracted to the negative instead of the positive. And it's like that with, even if you go outside of politics, right? Like, of course, if we're talking about politics, like, that's a prime example, right? Like, we would rather watch two potential two presidential candidates throw mud at each other instead of saying like what they actually bring to the table, in hopes that it will sway our votes. And the same thing goes outside of politics when you're talking about police officers, right? Like, anytime a police officer does something, it's spun into a negative. If you read a majority of the headlines in any news, local, national, whatever, they're all negative, right? Or they put like a negative spin on it. So it's almost like we've become accustomed to the negativity, and that's what we desire more than the positivity that's actually way more prevalent in the world.
No doubt about it.
Concerning.
No doubt. And on top of it, and I get it, there's a time and place where you got to bring up some of the negative things that these people do. Like, sure. I heard the guy come out against Biden actually talking about the money in China. I think I sent you guys the podcast, that how they were doing business in China, and he came out. And so that would be something for a moderator of debate to ask him, hey, what's your dealings here? And let him answer. You know what I mean? But that's not what's going on. And so it's just frustrating. I'm like, so that's why I say all that to say this is like, I'm glad that November 3rd is a week away from today, because despite who wins, at least we can say that, for now, election season is over, and then we can all just brace ourselves for the impeachment from one party to the other, because we know that's what's going to happen. One party's going to try to impeach the other person, or vice versa.
Oh, yeah. And the crazy part is police departments nationwide are like prepping for this. For both of them.
Yes.
They're prepping for both of them, right? Like, if either president wins, we're like, all right, we got a game plan for this. We got a game plan for this, which is crazy to think about. To think about.
So, go ahead.
I want to play a game with you real quick. All right. I'm going to read a headline, since we're talking about negativity and like how news outlets like to spread negativity and false narratives and whatnot. I'm going to read this headline from the recent shooting in Philadelphia. All right. You both have seen that?
And I got to tell you which network?
No. So it's not a major network. So I'll just weed those out. It's an online news source. All right. I'm going to read it. It says, news. Philadelphia police shot and killed a mentally ill man in front of his mother. This is I got this from Instagram, an online news source. So like, not CNN, not Fox, none of that.
So what about
it? Wait, no.
I mean, that sounds terrible.
No, but you said you're gonna play a game with me.
That's the game. You got to guess what news source.
Oh.
They're strictly online?
Yeah. Yep.
BuzzFeed.
No, but good guess.
Okay.
New York Post.
No, they're pretty major. One more guess each.
Washington Post.
Nah, you're thinking too.
Major.
Those are big. I mean, this one's big too, but it's.
It's local.
Ryan, it's all on you.
Sean King.
It's not local. Huh?
Sean King media outlets.
Close. Very close.
Oh, World Star.
World Star Hip Hop.
Wow. Hey, I got that.
Posted today. News. Philly police shot and killed a mentally ill man in front of his mother. That's the headline. That's all it says.
But you know what's funny? So did you see my post that I did yesterday on mental illness from the last podcast we did? So I did it, and it was actually getting good feedback. But we did, I literally did a post yesterday about how, because it was talking about why social workers shouldn't respond to these things. But I love how in that headline that, let's just say he is mentally ill, because I don't know. Right. I don't really know the facts behind it.
Yep.
But can a mentally ill person not be a danger to police officers or other people? And that's 100%. What and that's what baffles me, is that, people have this mindset. They mistake mental illness for that person not being a threat to the public or anybody else. Yes. I get it.
Yep.
Yes, he is going through a mental illness, but
Yep.
that does not relieve him the fact of him being a danger to other people. Like
Yep.
I've seen mentally ill people kill other people.
100%.
It happens all the time.
100%.
It happens all the
Yeah.
time. So, and then the other part of that headline, it says in front of his mother. So yes, is it tragic? Absolutely, it's tragic. But at the same time, the way they make it seem like, oh, police just showed up, we're gonna shoot this mentally ill dude right in front of his mother.
Right.
Like,
Right. It ain't say nothing about a knife. It ain't say nothing about them giving multiple orders.
No.
It ain't say nothing about like none of that.
but
right?
you know why? Because that is going to push the views. I hate to say sales
Yeah.
of papers because
Yeah.
people's not really buying papers anymore,
Clicks.
but that pushes clicks. It does.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
if the article would have read something like, man is killed by police that after giving multiple orders to put a knife down, he charged at him and was shot by police or something like that.
Yeah. You know what's crazy to think about now that we're talking about this? There used to be a time, since you brought up newspapers, right? There used to be a time that the reputable newspapers showed a majority of nothing but facts, right? Like you'd look at the front page of a newspaper and you'd see like crazy headlines, but the crazy headlines were more likely pretty accurate. And the crazy headlines, the ones that were made up, like the one I just read, were like the ones you would see on like newsstands not really selling, right? Like those were the ones people would buy just for entertainment purposes. But at some point in this chaos, we've switched. And it seems like the real ones, the ones that are pumping out the real news, are sitting on the newsstands and no one really wants to pick those up. But the ones who are coming up with these crazy headlines are thriving.
Yeah.
Which is concerning.
Because you got to
Which is
realize,
concerning.
because the local people, the local papers, your local city papers, they're really not pushing agendas. They're just trying to keep their little mom and pop newspaper stand going. Now, I
Right.
will say this, without getting, again, talking about who I like, which one I prefer over the other. I follow Fox, and I say I follow CNN only because CNN pushes notifications to my phone every single day. Now, if you look at both of them, I will say that Fox does, I'm not saying they're the best. They do a better job at giving a lot more unbiased content than CNN. Here's why. I will see on Fox, they'll have headlines that will bash like somebody like a Republican, Donald Trump, whoever it may be. Or not necessarily bash him, but they'll call him out for stuff. Bro, not one time have I ever seen CNN post something negative about the Democratic Party. Ever.
That's
Ever.
deep. That's deep.
And
You know-
even law enforcement.
Yeah.
I've seen on Fox, if like that article you just mentioned, they'll usually leave colors out of it. They won't say, hey, white officer shoots black man. It's officer shoot man killing him that was suffering from a mental health crisis. Whereas CNN, white officer shoots black man with knife. Or they won't even put the knife. White officer shoots black man.
Who didn't have gun?
So yeah, but that my point in saying that is like these are major networks that are giving out information that isn't always completely truthful, which leads me to this next point. Is I was talking to Leon. Matter of fact, we're gonna have Leon back on the podcast. Leon and Artie, we're gonna have them back on the podcast. Leon, somebody who was shot by police 5 times, paralyzed by police. That dude, if anybody could hate police, it's him. But me and Leon have a relationship that's like, brother, like the other day we're just talking, chopping it up. I FaceTime, and he was like, oh man, he was like, I gotta screenshot this. He was like, who would ever thought, man, one of my brothers is a police officer, and you know, but we're having a good conversation, and we're talking about what we're talking about now is this bias within the media, bro. He told me some crazy stuff, bro, about, and I have to tell you because I'm not gonna pull all of his business out there, but about people that are trying to capitalize on his, like, basically use him as a poster, like hey, like to push and giving him what to say, telling him this is what we need you to say.
Oh, I could
and
imagine.
paying and saying, hey, we will pay you this amount of money. But this is why I love Leon, is like, Leon's like, bro, this is not about the money for me. Like, I'm not going to allow you to use me, use my story, and use what I've gone, use my trauma as your political gain. Like, I don't care. It's not about the money for me. He was like, bro, like, I don't care what amount of money you give me. Like, it's not about that and so it's just mind boggling to me because it's like, you have all these media outlets, like, so that's what my point was, is that we were talking about fact checking. And so Leon says he does a lot of fact checking. And he was like, bro, like, when I start fact checking stuff, like, I am like rudely surprised that a lot of stuff that's actually put out there. And he said it himself. He was like, even against officers, when you look at the stuff that actually goes on and you actually fact check it, a lot of it is negative. A lot of it's not true, but the damage has already been done. And this came from Leon, somebody shot 5 times by police. He was like, and the spins that they put on these things, these articles, is ridiculous. And so that's what I love about Leon, is because me and Leon could have a legitimate, real conversation. We may not always agree on everything, but we agree on most of the things. And it's like, we've lost all of that in society. So
yeah, absolutely. And I know I said this before on a previous episode, but you know, this just makes me think of it even more. So, you know, we have to be careful what we're allowing people to feed us, right? Like, we wouldn't let somebody feed us poison. Like, we wouldn't say, hey, this is poisonous water, drink this. We wouldn't drink it, right? If somebody handed us that. But why do we continue to go back to these news sources that feed us false information, that perpetuate hate over and over and over again, and not think that it's not going to affect us mentally? We have to stop it. We have to protect our mental space. We absolutely have to. So if you're listening to this, if you're watching it, if you're hearing this message, however, protect your mental space. Like, know where you're getting your news from. And if you're getting your news from a source that you consider unreliable or they seem sketchy, fact check it. Fact check it. Go on Google, go on whatever, right? And we've already broke down different things about Google and whatnot. So it's kind of a scary time. Like, a lot of the sources that have information that we might want to go and look at could be skewed. So just choose wisely.
One of the things I appreciate right now is some of the celebrities that are just being them, sticking to who they are, and they're not allowing society's views to shape their own. And so this is what I mean. So we already talked about Ice Cube. We talked about 50 Cent. But another one I just saw was, so Matthew McConaughey, this was a headline today on Fox, actually. It says, Matthew McConaughey speaks out about his faith in Hollywood on podcast. Matthew McConaughey said being a Christian in Hollywood hasn't caused him problems, but he has watched others in entertainment limit expressions of their faith. The Oscar winner made a recent appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience, promoting the release of his memoir, Green Lights, and dropped his guard while discussing the touchy topics of his experience being a Christian in Hollywood, defunding the police, and cancel culture. When asked about defunding the police, he said that it's almost like it should have been renamed, because defund does not sound anything like there's been money reallocated to different areas of handling some police exercise. So I applauded. When I read that, I applauded him, because, like, this is what I'm getting at, and this is a personal ask to you if you're listening to this, is wherever you're at right now, whatever industry you're in, are you sacrificing who you are to appease the audience? And I don't care whether you're Christian, Muslim, Buddha, gay, straight, whatever it may be. If you firmly believe in something, are you sacrificing what you necessarily stand for to appease other people? Now, the reason I bring that up is, and here's my point, is that I hate that we live in a culture that if you don't think the same way I do, if you don't believe the same way I do, then you're wrong. Like, don't get me wrong, as a Christian man and having a Christian faith, there are certain lifestyles that I don't agree with. It's just, that's a part of my faith. That's a part of my DNA. That's who I am. So, but don't take the fact that maybe I don't agree with your lifestyle with the fact that I don't like you or I don't love you. I'm still going to like you. I'm still going to love you. And you are totally, can believe whatever you need to do. Like, that's what the beauty of being an individual is. But what I don't like is the fact that if I don't agree with the same way you do, then now all of a sudden you're going to start to shame me because, you don't think the same way I do. And I think we've dropped the ball as far as Christians have, is that we start to shame people because they live a certain lifestyle as opposed to loving them. We just did a sermon this week in church talking about loving our neighbors. And what's the great commandment? I've said this before. The great commandment is, one, first and foremost, love God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your soul. Second commandment is go and love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so if those are the two great commandments, you know, yeah, other people are, if we, certain lifestyles and things like that, yeah, it's a sin, but are you still loving that person? And so, you know, there's that old phrase that says you can hate the sin and love the person. Despite despite our disagreements, I'm still going to love you as a person. And we're not doing that as a society right now. And so that's what I appreciate about some of these guys like Ice Cube or 50 or Matthew McConaughey. Despite whether or not I agree with them or I don't agree with them, what I do love is that they're passionate about what they believe in, and they're not shaming others for thinking something else. And I think that's what's so frustrating. Like all those people that start attacking, they're talking about protesting the show Power because 50 came out and said, oh, all of a sudden, you know, I'm not down with the tax. Yeah, they're like, I'm not down with the tax plan, so I'm voting for Donald Trump. So, you know, so now they're gonna protest Power. And then you had his ex-girlfriend, what's her name?
Chelsea something.
Yeah, talking about I had to remind him that he was black.
And he can't vote for Trump because he's black.
Like, what is that? So that to me is more of a racial comment than anything, because now you're using the color of my skin to saying this is who I should be voting for, and so I got to remind you who you are. Yeah. Which, if you go back to slavery days and civil rights days, that's what slave masters did. Even though I know your name is Ryan, no, your new name is Toby, and let me remind you that your name is Toby. That's how I look at that. When you say, like, I have to remind you that you're black, that tells me that you have to remind me where my place is in society. And that's wrong. If we're trying to better ourselves, if we're trying to increase who we are, if we're trying to be looked at as being equals, then you can't, on one hand, demean me by saying, let me remind you where your place is in society and who you need to vote for.
Yeah.
Whether you vote for Trump or the opposite. Hey, what's going on, guys? I want to interrupt our podcast episode briefly to highlight our podcast sponsor, which is Thin Line Anthem. When you guys support them, it supports us, and they are a phenomenal business that is created by first responders for first responders to promote health and wellness. And so I take their products. My wife takes their products. I'm feeling a lot better. I've actually lost some weight, and I'm actually gaining strength in the gym. So if you guys want to start that journey to health and wellness, make sure you guys subscribe to Thin Line Anthem products. Go on to thinlineanthem.com. Utilize promo code ITSNEEDED. All caps, no spaces. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of this episode.
And the crazy part is, like, what backlash is she facing for making a statement like that? None. She's actually being embraced by the community for making a statement like that, which is crazy, because imagine if the statement she made was reversed, right? So imagine if who's the female you're reading the book about, Ryan?
Oh, Candace Owens?
What if Candace Owens was a white woman saying everything that she says?
I know.
Can you imagine the backlash that she would face?
Tremendously.
Like, she already faces an extreme amount of, and listen, I'm not here to push a political party or agenda or anything like that. This is a fact, all right? You have a black woman saying X, Y, and Z and is already facing extreme backlash. Imagine if she was saying the opposite and was white.
Bro, take us.
Or imagine she was saying the same thing but was white.
Bro, take us for example. The stuff I say, bro, I already hear that the fact of, like, I had somebody last night make a comment and say, oh, they got to use a black guy to push this message. Or you sell. It's like, you on yours. Like, who's this guy talking about, you know, he's.
Why am I trying to sound black?
Yeah. Like, and that's the thing is, like, and I hate to say it, but it's so unfortunate. Like, I feel like sometimes I get more criticism from my own people.
Yeah.
And I hate to say my own people because we're all one and the same.
Nah, say it, man.
But if I'm gonna be real, I hate to say that I experience more criticism from my own people. Like, honestly, I was talking to my wife about that. I was like, you know what's funny is that I'll make a comment or I'll make a video based on my training and experience. So meaning I have knowledge in a certain area from personal experiences, dealing with mental health, dealing with being in an officer-involved shooting, dealing with critical incidents. I have firsthand knowledge, and I'm making a comment based on my experience, but yet you think that I'm just speaking up for white people because it doesn't go along with your narrative.
Yep.
And that's what's so frustrating. I'm like, man, like, why can't y'all just say, oh, man, like, at least we got somebody that's one of our people that's actually speaking up and trying to educate us, but it doesn't go along with your narrative, so therefore I'm not going to tell you how I feel, or I'm going to tell you what I feel because I'm all driven by my emotions.
I was watching a David Letterman special on Netflix. He just put out like a new series.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see the one with Dave Chappelle?
No, I didn't.
You got to watch it. Billy, I want you to watch it too. And actually, everybody listening to this, I need you to watch it. Like, they ain't ask us to shout them out like that. But listen, Dave Chappelle said made so many powerful statements throughout this series that applied exactly to that. And at one point, he asked David Letterman, he said, well, what would the world look like if everyone agreed with each other? Like, what would we learn? Like, where would the growth come into point, like, or into play? And David Letterman was like, you're absolutely right. Like, if everybody in this crowd thought exactly the same, had the exact same experiences, we wouldn't grow. We wouldn't grow. It'd be like running on a treadmill. We wouldn't get anywhere. But now we live in a world where people have different life experiences, in return have formed different opinions based off of those life experiences, but are afraid to share them because they'll get judged or they'll get canceled, because we live in this cancel culture. And he tied it back into being a comedian. He's like, being a comedian is extremely hard and difficult right now because we're afraid to go up and make jokes about race or sexual orientation, which, if historically, those are jokes that are used, right? And those are headline jokes. And he's like, people are going to get offended and we're going to get canceled. And he's like, it's frustrating because we can't go out here and do the same routine that we used to do. We're afraid to make these rough jokes or these jokes that may offend people because now we have this fear of being canceled for ultimately telling a joke.
Man, I posted this video, and now I'm gonna play the clip real quick because this is right along with what we're saying. Now, what's the word that you used before? Like I want you guys to realize that I don't always agree with what this dude says. So that's what's it called? My caveat or whatever. But anyways, I can't think of the word right now. But anyways,
ham sandwich.
Oh man!
Like you're saying you don't agree 100% with him?
Yeah, I don't agree with 100%. This guy always says, but let me go ahead and just play the clip because what he says in this segment, spot on.
We have to get out of this mindset, Nick, that says I have to like you in order to vote for you. You a businessman. I'm sure you've done business with people you don't like.
Facts.
But it was mutually beneficial, right?
Right.
So you do it. That's how we need to approach politics. You don't exclude the Republican because he's a Republican.
Right.
And you don't automatically endorse the Democrat because he's a Democrat. You listen to them both and you choose the one who has an agenda that is closely aligned to the one you're trying to push.
But what if they're only pushing personality? What if
That's the problem, Nick.
Right.
Personality means I got to like you.
Right.
Do you understand? So Obama got elected by black folks.
Because we liked them.
Because we liked them. I don't need to like you to do business with you. If I got to strike a deal with Donald Trump for black empowerment, I'll strike a deal with Donald Trump because what I'm not looking for is a black president or a black governor or a black mayor. I'm looking for black power. Right. Stop confusing the personality with the pop. We have to get out of this.
So,
who was that?
Dr. Umar. I think that's the name, right?
I don't know who that is.
I think it's Dr. Umar. The dude, I mean, when I heard that, I was like, wow, that's spot on. Like, spot on. Because that's what 50's talking about. That's what Ice Cube's talking about. And so I learned that lesson. Early on, when as a young adult, I voted for people based on whether or not whether I liked them or not. Which, it's a human nature thing. You're going to vote for somebody because you like them. But just because you like somebody doesn't necessarily mean they're always going to align with everything that you view. So we have to get out of this place where even though I may not like you, what you're doing may be beneficial to me or to what I'm trying to accomplish. And I need to be able to see beyond the personality and say, hey, look, this person has ideals that line up with mine. You know why? And going back to the spiritual side of things, the Christianity side of things, is because Satan is very conniving. Satan is going to dress himself up into a place and make himself appear to you like he is your friend. Think about what happened in the garden. You know what I mean? You talk about Adam and Eve. He will disguise himself. He will come off conniving and cunning and, making himself, appear like he is your friend. But he's doing that all while at the same time he's leading you to a path of death. And so that's why we got to be careful with going with people just because we feel like we like them or just because we feel like we can resonate with their personality. Is that beneficial? Yes, but you need to look at the issues. What is their stance on things? And I bring that up talking now, switching that gears to police work, is like, you may not like police officers. And I've always said from day one, my goal was not to get you to like police officers. I'm not here to have you put up a thin blue line flag in your front yard and say, oh, I love police officers all of a sudden. All I want you to do is just have a different perspective of law enforcement by the time you're done talking to me. Because if I can give you a different perspective, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to like me all of a sudden. But all it means is that the next time you see a video that comes out of Philadelphia, the next time you see a video that comes out of San Bernardino, the next time you see a video that comes out of Minnesota, the next time you see a video that comes out to you out of Washington or Wisconsin, you'll be able to say, hey, look, I have a different, unique perspective because somebody I know who's credible, that's knowledgeable on this subject, has been able to give me some insight that I wouldn't have had before, even though I may not like that person. That's what that means. That's why it's important. Because if you say, I don't like cops, are you going to be able to be receptive to hear a message that comes from cops? Absolutely not.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, you're an FTO, right?
I am. And for you guys aren't familiar with what an FTO is, that's a field training officer.
Yeah, so Ryan coaches officers. Like when a new officer comes out of the academy and gets on his department, they ride with him and he shows them the ropes basically. So I'm gonna ask you a question, Ryan. But before I ask you a question, I'm gonna make a statement that I feel like a lot of our listeners would already know, but maybe somebody needs to hear it. There is a fear of the future of law enforcement from law enforcement officers coming this election. And the fear is this. And this is my personal experience talking to police officers from all over. It seems like a general fear or uncertainty from the profession of law enforcement as a whole. The fear is this. If Biden gets elected, we're uncertain what the profession is going to look like. And that uncertainty is for multiple reasons, right? Like, of course, we're worried about job security. Are we going to be able to feed our families? What's our job going to look like? Our mental health, our
qualified
benefits,
immunity,
all of that
stuff.
But then there's a deeper fear that really shows like how compassionate and caring most police officers are. And that fear is for the community, right? So like a lot of police officers are like, well, if Biden, and I'm not saying this is the reality. I'm just saying that this is a general fear that's going on, right? So hopefully y'all can help us with this fear as well. But to break that down a little bit more, most or a good amount of police officers also fear that if Biden gets elected, that our profession will become more restrictive in nature, i.e. we can't go out here and be proactive and arrest the drug dealers and criminals and whatnot, and that crimes are going to skyrocket, and that ultimately the community will suffer. The people who we are paid from, right? Like they pay us to protect them. Like we will no longer be able to protect them. On the flip side of things, the fear is if Trump gets elected, that there will be more protests and riots, and that anger and frustration will be projected at law enforcement. Which we all see what happened, right? Like I got hit with a scooter and tore my rotator cuff, working a riot, right? That they call it a peaceful protest. So that's kind of where most police officers are right now. Just in case you didn't know, just to kind of set myself up for this question. And my question to you, Ryan, is this. If you have a new officer, I'm talking brand new, just came out of the academy, what's something that you can tell him or her to prepare him or her for their future in law enforcement? Coming up on this election and really coming up on, you're starting this career. You got 25, 30 years in this profession. What's something that you could tell them or something you could maybe show them to help prepare them for the future?
So what's funny is I'm actually training somebody as we speak, and had her in my car yesterday, and we were running some errands. We had to go do something for my sergeant. And as the day was going on, I told you about the fires and it's crazy because as you're looking at the fires, like you can see like all like the flames, like that's how close they were to our city. And it's like the whole mountain, you look up and the whole mountain's on fire. So they asked some of our units to go out to Chino Hills to go help evacuate. And one of the first things I said, I was like, oh man, like I'm kind of mad because I wanted to go out there and help evacuate. Like that's just, I wanted to go do that. That's not natural. That's not normal. Like people, think about that. People are running away from the fires. But my first inclination was, I want to go help. I want to go and help evacuate these people and get them out of there. And so that kind of, the subject for today was supposed to be talking about sacrifice. And we may have time just to briefly touch on it, but that sacrifice is one of the things that I've really loved. And so what that did for me was it made me start to think, and it's funny you bring that question up, because as I'm driving and talking to her, I said, you know what? And literally, I just said this yesterday. So, you know what? Despite all the hate we get, despite all the people talking trash, despite, people wanting to protest, because that's what we were actually doing. We were actually going to the local prison to see if we can actually borrow some munitions. So like some gas munitions, pepper ball munitions, in preparations of the election and in preparation of the social unrest and all that other stuff. And I said, despite all of this stuff, there is no job like it. There is no job like it. You know why? And I said, you know why? What job do you know that you can go out there and legitimately be a help to somebody in their most deepest, darkest need, the most darkest moment of their life? What other job do you know that you can go and be there on the front lines to assist them? And the funny thing is that when that time calls, when that person calls 911 and we arrive, nobody's thinking, I'm not thinking about all the social unrest. I'm not thinking about all the people that have called me pigs. I'm not thinking about all the people that have called me the N-word. What I'm thinking about is preserving that person's life that I'm dealing with. And on the flip side of that, that person who could be one of those people that's all about, police justice or police reform, defund the police, ACAB, that person that calls 911, they're not thinking about all the crap that they hate about law enforcement. What they're thinking about is, I hope that somebody can help me. And when we meet in the middle at that situation, we're not thinking about everything going on around us. We're thinking about helping one another out. And I was like, there is no job like that you can go out and do like what we do in this job. And I said, and so for that reasons, I wouldn't change my life for anything else. I was like, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of crazy opportunities right now, ridiculous opportunities, but I wouldn't change my life right now because there's no job like it. And so what I would tell the person that's looking to go into law enforcement, that's in law enforcement right now, I would tell you the same thing that I told her yesterday. There's no job like it, because yeah, you're going to get people talking about you. Yeah, you're going to get people that throw scooters at you. Yeah, you're going to get people that shoot bullets at you. But that's the beauty of sacrifice. Nothing good comes without a little bit of sacrifice. And that kind of moves me on to the point and the topic for today was this whole notion of sacrifice. Guys, I need you to understand, like, people don't understand the level of sacrifice that we have as police officers. And I'm gonna get the question or the statement out in the open right now, because this is what the number one thing I've gotten. AJ's gotten it before, and if you're an officer, you've probably gotten it yourself. You signed up to do this. You are absolutely right. We did sign up to do this. But just because we signed up to do it doesn't make the job any more easier or any less harder. It's still a sacrificial job. My son's birthday was yesterday. And you know what? I still went to work. I had spent time with him in the morning, but I still went to work. And you know why I went to work is because other people are going to call 911 that day and they're going to need help, and daddy needs to go there and help them out. I've missed birthdays. I've missed family events. I've missed Christmas. I've missed Christmas Eve. I've missed New Year's. I've missed New Year's Eve. I've missed Thanksgiving. I've missed, my first son was born the first week of the academy. I started the academy on Monday. He was born on Saturday, and I was back to work on Monday. When most people would be spending time with their newborn, I was back to work on that. I was back to the academy on that Monday. I have sacrificed many things, but the ultimate sacrifice is those that have given their life to save somebody else's life. There are officers dying every single day that showed up to work that did not expect to have a bullet put through their head. I had a friend of mine that was in law enforcement who was recently died from cancer, and there's a possibility that throughout his career, some of the things that he was exposed to, like asbestos, might have been the cause of that cancer, which is another sacrifice, and he leaves behind his 7-year-old son. So yes, is it dangerous to go to other jobs? Absolutely. Is any of our lives guaranteed? Can we know that we're going to, no doubt about it, come home at the end of the night? There's no guarantee on life. But at the same time, our level of sacrifice goes up a lot more than some of the other people that do other jobs. And so this is not a pity party. This is not to say, woe is me, but this is a reality that comes. And so I encourage you that if you are that person that's going into this profession, that wants to go into this profession, or if you're in this profession, stay in the fight. Nothing good comes easy, and the sacrifice is worth it, because what we do is honorable, not only for those around us, but for our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
That's right. That's right. And I want you to think of how rewarding this job must be if we, as law enforcement professionals, every day, despite the negativity, despite the chaos, despite the agendas that are anti-us, put on our uniforms and go to work every single day. Think about how rewarding this job must be. Because I'm telling you, it ain't the money, right? Like if that's what you're thinking, like, well, they must get paid a lot because they put up with a lot. It ain't the money, right? The benefits are depending on what department you work for, depending on what state you work for. So what else does that leave? It has to, well, it's a power trip. That's what it is. They want that power. That's why they ain't leaving. What power do we have as law enforcement officers right now? We're being told not to go out here and arrest people, and every single move that we make is under the microscope. So that's not it. So what's that leave? It has to be a rewarding job. Mm-hmm. It has to be. And rewarding doesn't even do it justice. This has to be a life-changing career that you are called for. If every single day you put this uniform on, despite people wanting to kill you, despite people wanting to kill your family, show up to your house, put your personal information out there, harm you, harm your loved ones, spread negativity, and just do all sorts of other negative things just because of your profession. It has to be one of the most rewarding jobs in the world. And I will personally say that it is. I will absolutely say that this is one of the most rewarding jobs ever. And since we're talking about sacrifice, you're absolutely right. Like, how many holidays have we missed? Thanksgiving, the whole family's getting together. Can AJ make it? No, AJ's got to work. You know, it's a whole seniority based, or, you know, they're short staffed, or they're protesting and rioting. So everything's redlining. You can't take a day if you want to right now. Oh, Christmas, it's my son's first Christmas. You going to be able to be there and watch him open gifts? Well, we're going to have to wake up real early and get him up so I can be able to watch him open 1 or 2 gifts before I put this uniform on and go out there and do what I do. There's so much sacrifice that comes with this job, and that just reinforces the fact that this job is extremely rewarding. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking about going into the field, or maybe you're in the field and you've been a cop for years and you just can't take it right now, I want you to take a step back and just think how rewarding this job is.
And why you get into
this job. Why you took this job. I'll never forget the day that my department called me. This is before I worked for them, and said, hey, you were accepted into the academy. It starts in a few weeks, super short notice. Can you make it? I'm like, yes, absolutely. Sign me up. Absolutely. They're like, okay, you have to go to this building. This is the address. It's a uniform shop. They're going to get you fitted for your uniforms. So I'm like, okay. So I go to the building. It was called Roy Taylor's at the time. It's Gall's now, for those of you who are familiar. So I'm there, and the seamstress comes out. And she's like, I don't think we'll have any shirts that will fit you. Let me grab an actual uniform shirt. So she grabs a real police uniform shirt for the department that I now work for. And she puts it on me. She pins it up. She puts the dress pants on me, a belt, some boots. She's like, stand in front of the mirror. Let me know how you look. And I'll never forget the feeling of standing in front of the mirror and looking at myself in full uniform and how proud I was. And I made a promise that day that I keep to this day. And that promise was, I will do everything in my power to bring nothing but honor to this badge and to bring positivity to the community that I serve. And I have to remind myself that some days. I have to remind myself how excited and how proud I was that day I put my uniform on. But it'll never fade because I was called to this job. Not only was I called to this job, but I went through so much to get this job. I lost friends. I lost family members. I've been called every name in the book, a traitor, a Uncle Tom, you name it. I did it for this career. So I want you to remind yourself that. I want you to remind yourself that. And we're talking about sacrifices, right? There's a story. Me and Jones were working together one day, and there's a fire. We're just driving, right? We didn't get dispatched. We see all this black smoke coming from like this warehouse district. So we're like, that's a fire. Let's head over that way just in case, the fire department is there, investigate. So we pull up and people are running out of this warehouse. So we're like, hey, there's people trapped in the back. So what do? We sacrifice. We're like, okay, we got to go in. So we run in this building. There's black smoke everywhere. A guy greets us at the door. He's like, hey, I'll take you back to where the fire is. So we're like, okay. So I'm like, Jones, get a fire extinguisher, because we keep little fire extinguishers in our trunk. So he grabs it, and this guy is just it's like a normal day to him. Like, he is not in that big of a rush. He's just kind of walking. There's smoke everywhere. You can see like the flames way back in the warehouse. Then we get to it. He's like, this whole corner's on fire, and it's like getting hot because we're closer. And I'm like, well, this fire extinguisher ain't gonna do nothing. Like, we gotta evacuate. And I asked the guy, I go, hey, what kind of like warehouse is this? And he goes, it's a plastic factory. And in my head, I'm like, great.
That's not good at all.
Great. We're in here breathing this smoke.
Chemicals,
right?
all that
We
stuff,
might be fine now, right?
But later,
who knows, 10, 20, 30 years from now, like, we might not be okay. That's part of the sacrifice of this job that people don't consider, right?
Yep.
Of course, we want people who want to shoot us, stab us, beat us up, do all of that. But there's other parts of this. I've kicked in a door. An entire house was on fire. I kicked the front door. The front door came off the hinges towards me because there was so much pressure in the house. Blew me on my butt all the way in the front yard.
Think
That's
about
sacrifice that people don't think about.
Think about all the people that died from 9/11 after the fact.
Yep.
There's a lot that are still dying from 9/11 years later from all the smoke that they inhaled and everything like that, from cancer. One of the things I'm gonna leave on this note, and so you talked about that story of when you put on that uniform. It's funny how God just kind of works everything in divine for reasons, and how just the smallest thing he uses to tell stories. Yesterday when I was driving, when I was at work, they had a lot of people at my department that they asked to go out into the streets and help. So all the detectives went out, all of our special assignment units went out, because our calls, like were like crazy. We had like 40 or 50 calls for us at one time that were just holding, that, wires down, fires, this, that. So we needed to clear as many people we could to go and actually work patrol that don't typically do it. So they also had some of the cadets go out there. And if you don't know what a cadet is a non-sworn position. They're there. They do all types of help around the police department. They help with, equipment, the traffic unit. They, make sure all the units are okay and stuff like that. So they had a cadet go out, and they had the cadets go out there and help too for traffic control. And so they actually asked, they were out of units. Like, they didn't really have, as far as like non-police vehicles, they didn't have enough because there was so much work to do. So they asked one of the cadets to go out there, and he took a police car because he was like, hey, this is the last thing that was available. So he's driving around, and as I see him driving around, he's not in a police uniform, and I see him. It's like, hey, what's going on, man? How you doing? He's like, I'm doing good. And usually if you're a cadet, you want to become a police officer. Like, that's your goal. Right. You're a cadet because you're trying to become a police officer. So I see him. I'm like, hey, man, how you doing? He's like, I'm doing good. I'm like, okay, cool. He was smiling, and I was like, hey, have you been imagining yourself pushing that thing for real? And he kind of looked at me at first. He was like, yeah, like, cause and if you don't know, like, in law enforcement, there's like this paramilitary thing. So they're very, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, very careful on how they talk to officers and stuff. But I've always been low key. Like, I'm not that type of guy. Like, hey, I'm approachable. So I'm like, no, man, I was like, what I want you to do is, I want you, as you drive around that thing, I want you to envision yourself driving that thing, and I was like, I'm sure you've already done this, but you being the police officer driving that black and white, and you being the officer that's going to these calls and handling these calls, like, visualize that. Visualize where you're going to be and what you're going to do. But that just reminded me is, like, we all started there at one place. We all remembered that excitement that we had to put on that uniform, to drive that car. And I don't care. And I'm sure the funny thing is I'm sure when I started as a police officer, I'm sure there was social unrest going on. Maybe not as much as it is now. But you know what's funny is I never even thought about any of that stuff, because the goal of me becoming a police officer, the goal of me putting on that badge, the goal of me being able to go out there and help people was bigger than any of that social arrest that was going on. So I never even thought about it, because the goal was, my why was bigger than the trial. And so that's why I encourage you guys right now is like, go back to that place and remember why you decided to do what you do. Go back there. Yes, it's more dangerous. Yes, our family's life is more sacrificial now because we're talking about qualified immunity and them trying to get rid of it. But at the end of the day, this is what the reality is. Whether it's President Trump, whether it's President Biden, whoever is going to be the president, you have to understand that people will still need help. People are still going to call 911. People still will be victimized, and somebody's going to be needed to respond in order to save them and also take the people to jail, so that way they don't victimize anybody else. That will forever be there, because it's not a battle of, right versus wrong. It's a battle of good versus evil, a spiritual battle, and that's never going to go away until we perish from this life and go home with our Father in heaven. So I encourage every single one of you guys right now, stay in the fight. It's worth it. It is well worth the sacrifice. And you got me, AJ, and Billy here to continue to motivate you guys through and get you guys through to wherever you guys want to go. So that being said, guys, it is always a pleasure to hop on this podcast. The podcast is still continuing to grow. We're not stagnant, which is good. We get comments. That's what I want to do real quick before we get off. I wanted to read a couple of some of the reviews that we've got on our podcast, because I think these are really cool and I think they're worth the acknowledgement. So we had a person, Boy in Blue. I made a hard choice to leave my law enforcement career after 10 years. I was jaded and cynical, and as a believer, I was not happy with where I was at mentally and spiritually. There's more to that, but suffice it to say, the It's Needed podcast is some of the best content for an aspiring current or former law enforcement officer. And I appreciate the faith aspect. In closing with a prayer, keep up the amazing work, you two. 3 counting Billy. Another one, keeping things real. These guys are truly having the conversations that are needed and speaking about the truth and how to make a difference in the world we need. Keep it up, guys. And that's from Train Boy. And I'm going to read one last one. We'll do this more often too, but I think these are cool and I want other people to hear it. There's one that I'm looking for. You have anything else while I'm reading these, AJ? You have any final words?
Just that you're needed. Not to be cliche, not to be like corny, because that's the, name of the podcast. But, I want you to remind yourself that when you're going out there as well, is you're needed, despite how much, even if the entire world hated you and hated your profession, you are still needed. You're still needed to respond in people's times of need. You're still there to preserve life, to help people out, to spread positivity, and to be that light in very, 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 very dark places. There are a lot of people out there who have absolutely zero positive influences in their life. And you are needed to be one of them. You are needed to be one of them. And guess what's going to happen? When you show up in your police uniform, they might be hostile. They might yell at you. They might cuss at you. They might try to physically attack you, but you're needed to be that positivity. And once you sprinkle that little bit of light in that dark area, it's going to light up like wildfire. It's going to light up like wildfire, and watch their mind change.
Amen to that. Here goes the last one. This is from Music Junkie, and the title is The Importance of Supporting. As a social worker, it was no-brainer to me to support Black lives, but I always felt conflicted about the demonizing of police by BLM movement. I was told it was wrong supporting both, but that felt wrong to me. Through this podcast, Tillman and AJ have made me realize it's not wrong. In fact, it's absolutely crucial we do support both. This podcast has opened my eyes to the reality of police officers' job while enforcing my beliefs about the importance of changes they can be a part of to better our society. Thank you, Officers Tillman and AJ, for the work you're doing to change the world. And AJ, don't knock your social workers, bud. Thousands are out there dealing with the sweaty, naked, crazy guys in residential treatment centers.
My bad. I don't know what I said, but my bad.
Not hoping they will replace police, but no, they're already out there handling those things and have some crazy stories similar to yours. Keep it up, guys.
For sure. For sure. And the crazy part about it is I don't know what I said, so let me apologize first and foremost. But to go off of that, the crazy part is most of these social workers go out there and do that with no weapons, and no vests or none of
Absolutely.
that. So I definitely applaud social workers. I think what I was referring to was as far as them wanting to go out and replace police officers. There's a certain amount of people who want social workers to replace police officers, and how that's just not applicable.
Yeah.
I applaud social workers. I work with social workers. That's a tough job. And when we talk about pay and benefits, y'all ain't there either. Y'all deserve way more pay, and y'all deserve way better benefits. So I definitely applaud the social workers.
Exactly. So, and also too, I wanted to just reemphasize that law enforcement, we do have a sacrificial job. We're not the only ones though. You have EMTs out there that are sacrificing their family and their lives to go out there and help others. Firefighters, social workers, correctional officers, you name it. There's a lot of people out there that are doing nurses, doctors that are sacrificing their personal time and efforts and stuff like that. Teachers, I can go down the list. So law enforcement is not the only profession that is making a level of sacrifice, but the reason we highlighted law enforcement is obviously because we are police officers. So that being said, let me close in a prayer. Since my that one guy said he loved, or one follower listener loved us closing in prayer, so we're going to do that real quick. So dear Heavenly Father, I come before you and I just ask that you would just continue to bless all of our viewers, listeners, fans, you name it, whoever they are, wherever they're at, Lord. I just ask that you continue to bless them, give them the courage that they need to go out there into this dark world and be a light to this dark place. There's so many people that need restoration right now. They need peace. They need peace in their heart, peace in their mind. I just ask that you would just uplift them today, give them a spirit that they had when they first started whatever they were doing, whether it was law enforcement, whether it was EMT, firefighters, whatever job they're in, security. I don't know where they're at, but I just ask that you restore that kindle in their heart, that fire in their heart that they had when they first started, and allow them to remember the reason they got into it. The work we are doing is needed, Lord, and I just ask that the work that we continue to do is only led by you, so that way it will be spirit-driven and Christ-driven. So we love you, we thank you, and if you're somebody out there that is struggling on the fence of a relationship with God or a relationship with Christ, I just pray for you right now, and I just ask that you would open your heart, realize that God died, or Jesus Christ came to this earth to die for our sins, so that way we can all be forgiven, and that's where forgiveness is found. That's how we can forgive anybody, despite the crime, despite whatever they've done, we can forgive anybody. So I ask that you would accept him as Lord and continue to move forward in your daily life and daily walk, so that way you can be somebody that's out there doing the work that's needed. We love you and thank you for it in your son's name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, it was a good one, everybody. We appreciate you. I'm actually interviewing for a detective today, so we will find out to see if it will be Detective Tillman here.
Yes,
and
sir.
it may or may not. And I also have a really, really cool interview. I'll give you all a little spoiler alert, but I'm actually doing a cool interview today at about 11:45 with Michael Strahan. So
yes, sir.
that's going to be cool. So stay tuned for that. And shout out to our podcast sponsors, Thin Line Anthem. If you guys need your supplements, you guys want to get back into health and into shape, please make sure you guys go on to thinlineanthem.com, where you can receive 20% off your order. And all you got to do is just type in "It's Needed," all caps, no spaces,
Billy.
hashtag "It's Needed." Did I get that right? 25% off. 25% off.
There we go.
Yeah, my bad.
There we go.
25% off. I tried. I almost had it. But anyways, we love y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.